Perfect.
Hey everyone, and welcome to a Hungover podcast brought to you by the dog hater Julien himself. That's right, you heard it here first. He hates dogs.
That's not true. Who hates dogs? They're great.
I dislike dogs.
What's the deal with dogs?
Dislike dogs.
You do?
I was bit by a very big dog when I was very little, and I have a phobia. My family never had dogs because we like the independence that you can have with cats. So it's not that I dislike dogs, but it's like a roommate that you haven't spoken to in a month because the dishes are an issue. You have your space, I have my space, and never the twain shall meet.
And that's it. That's it. That's all we want.
Julien, we're coming at you. I think we might be sponsored by this style of glass. Glasses.
Well, I don't know what they're called. What are they called?
I have no fucking clue.
Anyways, I've changed my appearance in every single podcast this year. So
you're back to mustache beard, I see.
I'm gonna shave after this podcast, so don't you worry.
There was a day long ago that you said once you got your PhD, you'd shave off your hair too.
I do. I know. I'm working on that. All right.
Sorry, I'm looking to grow my hair back out. I have a very particular Halloween costume I plan on doing.
Cool.
So I need longer hair. I'm gonna dye my hair most likely. It's gonna be great.
What color? Spoiler alert.
Like brownish. That's your one hint, everyone.
All right, we'll be keeping bets until Halloween.
Sounds
gonna be great.
Good. Julien, we're not the only one making bets because Wall Street has made their bed in bets and they're lying in it now.
The scum.
But they're also not. They're fine at the same time. It depends on who they were and when they put money in. We'll talk about all of that later because everybody's talking about that GME
stonks.
And we're going to get into a wider discussion, I think, a little bit, but than just following how large the stock grew. So hopefully we'll be able to investigate some things, learn some things. But Julien, what we learn every week about each other is what we've been indulging in.
Yes.
This is some fucking A-level podcast hosting segues.
This is the content.
I think everyone needs to be paying attention, take some lessons. Podcast. My stonks of podcast hosting rising up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would certainly invest. In fact, I have, and that's why you're a co-host of the podcast. That's why you're here. Exactly. We do start our podcast out every single week. Talking about what we've been doing the past week and what we've been drinking, because it's called the Hungover Podcast, where we used to drink a lot, and now we don't drink so much anymore. But
I still think I drink more than the average person.
I would say so. I actually drank a lot in this past week as well. I drank a lot of tequila on Monday night. Monday night, I drank a lot of tequila. I don't know why. I do know why. It was a mistake. It was actually a mistake. I didn't mean to pour that much tequila in there. So for me, I've been indulging in a lot of video gaming. We had a huge winter storm on Monday afternoon in New York City. Monday
up
the
here too.
1st. I assume, it hit Syracuse super hard. But New York City is a bunch of people who are unprepared for the snow. I tell you, 8 million people who do not know what to do when the snow is coming. Because, holy crap, they sort of shut down a lot of the subways that go outside. And that made my life a little difficult. Even though my entire commute is underground except for when the D train goes across the bridge, the Manhattan Bridge. It's underground. And I could have taken the R train, for instance, which is an entirely underground train. Yet they still decided to stop it at J Street Metrotech, and that's like the second stop in Brooklyn. And I have no fucking clue why. Why are you doing this? I don't know.
De Blasio, you know?
De Blasio really fucked up. Let me tell you, it took me like an extra hour to get home that day. We shut down the shop at 2 p.m. I was learning how to make sausage that day. I had just made all the farces. We were going to make a buffalo chicken sausage. I essentially made it.
What the fuck is a farce?
It's great. It's just the French word for stuffing, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah, you can have like a meat farce.
That's very anticlimactic, by the way.
Yeah, well, you farce this, you farce that. We're gonna make a buffalo chicken sausage for the Super Bowl. We're gearing up. We've got a lot of chicken wings in our freezer. We don't really freeze any meat unless it's for. The one time we freeze meat for orders is, I guess, for chicken wings for the Super Bowl, because we can't possibly store that many chicken wings all in one place unless it's in a freezer. Or when we do shabu shabu, we'll slice meat thinly for the Japanese. It's like you dip it in the boiling broth and it cooks the meat. It's essentially Japanese hot pot. We'll freeze an eye of round.
It sounds like the Japanese went to a hot pot restaurant. Yeah. We're like, we're gonna name this our thing.
Exactly.
But who knows?
I don't know. Maybe it developed independently. Who knows? But yeah, so we will freeze an eye of round to slice on the deli slicer at the end of the night, to make shabu shabu if someone orders it. But it's typically not something we do at our shop. But we're going to make a buffalo chicken sausage, which has everything in it. Everything that you would want from a buffalo chicken. It's got the chicken.
Sausage has everything.
It's got Frank's Red Hot. It's got blue cheese. It's got milk powder in there to replicate the seasoning. It's got ranch. So we've got garlic powder, onion powder.
You've got blue cheese and ranch?
Oh, yeah. We're going all in, buddy.
That's blasphemy.
I'll tell you how it is. I'll tell you how it is when I get some. I hope we didn't sell out, because I was on my weekend as soon as we made it. It would really suck if we sold out, actually.
Didn't think of that shit.
Didn't think of that.
I don't leave my house when it's the weekend. I just play video games.
That's what I do. Seriously.
I know, Julien. I lived with you for many years.
Otherwise, I've been playing a lot of video games. Last night, I defeated Yakuza 0. Man, I started playing I had a meeting, which I can go into. I don't necessarily want to enclose the details of this meeting, but because I'm entering in a competition. I'll tell you after, Yvonne, and then maybe once I get closer to the competition date, I'll talk about it. But it's something I want to keep under wraps.
We're teasing that.
I'm teasing it. It's something I'm really interested in, though. But I had a meeting right as I was about to, like a 2-hour meeting, right as I was about to start streaming. So I delayed my stream. I started streaming at 11 p.m. and I beat Yakuza 0 by 3 a.m. because this game is like Metal Gear Solid when it comes to ending cutscenes, where you have like an hour-long movie at the end of the game, at the end of a 40-hour game. So I was like fucking falling asleep on stream watching this cutscene, even though the cutscenes are really awesome.
I don't think I have stayed up until 3 a.m. in the past year.
The only times I've done it were to beat Death Stranding and Yakuza 0. So, because Death Stranding I started playing, I'm like, oh, I'm at the end of the game. It'll be fine. It's not going to be like Metal Gear Solid at all. and lo and behold, it's this incredibly complicated boss fight that you have to figure out. I'm like, oh, I can't lower the difficulty now. I got to beat this shit. I've come this far and they're just taunting me by lowering the difficulty? Hell no. So I end up, minutely chipping away at the boss health and then finally beating it. And then there's an hour-long cutscene at the end of Death Stranding. This game, similar.
How
Kiryu,
did you not
the main
expect
character,
it from Kojima?
This wasn't a yeah, well, yeah, it's true. I should have known. And I was even more confused at the end of that game than I was when I started it, so that doesn't really help. But that's standard fare for Kojima games. This game, super cool ending. I thought the boss fights were, they were cheap. One of them was cheap. One of the ending boss fights, there's like 4 people that you're taking down all the crime lords. It's a Yakuza game. And it's really epic. But the first guy you fight, named Kuze, is really fucking... You fight him like 3 times in the game. But he's super cheap this time. He kicked my ass like 5 times. But the last fight is super cool. This game I can't praise enough. I really like Yakuza 0. Very excited to play the next Yakuza game. I also played a little bit of Final Fantasy 15. I'm slowly chipping away at that game. This is my 3rd attempt to beat it, by the way. The first time, not my fault. I got it on disc, and then my PS4 disc drive broke, so I just gave up. I actually happened to be at the last boss too, so I was really pissed off.
That does suck.
Then I bought it on PC. I was like, oh, I finally have a good enough PC to run this game in 4K. It's gonna be amazing. And then I just sort of stopped playing it. And then now I've got it on PS5. It's running really great, and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna fucking beat this game. I don't care. But then I was like, wait a second. This is not a good Final Fantasy game. Let me break out. I've always wanted, but I really wanted to play a Final Fantasy game. So I did some research, and it seems like the best Final Fantasy games are the ones that I've never played, except for 7. 7 is one of the best rated Final Fantasy games. I've beaten 9 and 7, 9, and 10. I've played and beat. I've played 13 and 12. I got
beat 13.
3/4 of the way. Yeah, you beat it on the PS. You're the only one who's beat it. That game is weird.
I'm the only one who's only played Final Fantasy 13.
The only Final Fantasy game you played was 13. Oh my god. So anyways, I broke out the old PlayStation Vita because this is the only way I can play Final Fantasy 6, which is supposed to be one of the best ones. I'm really into it. This game, Final Fantasy 6, is great. I intend to play Final Fantasy 5 and 4 as well, eventually.
Don't they have Final Fantasy 6 on iOS?
It is also on iOS, but I don't want to play a game that involves button inputs on a touchscreen. That's not my preferred way to play a game.
No,
but yes, Final Fantasy
Vita.
7 is also on iOS, which
cool. I'm surprised still works.
Yeah. But it was kind of a nightmare to get this thing up and running and connected to the internet. I haven't turned it on in like 3 years, and for some reason I needed to activate it because it got updated, and then it's like, what is going on? Sony really... The PlayStation Vita is super cool. I think this piece is an awesome piece of tech that was completely abandoned by Sony.
You and Greg, what's his name?
Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty. Yeah, they're the only ones who care about the Vita. But I think there's a lot... I mean, you can play all the PlayStation 1 classics on it. That's really cool. So there's countless hours of JRPGs to play. So I'm in. That's all you gotta say. And it's got Persona 4 Golden. Okay, that's all you need. So I'm really excited. You get trophies on some of the games. So I've been playing that because I'm still trying to beat Final Fantasy 15, but I'm kind of disappointed in it because it's a bad game. That's what I have to say. And one other game that I was playing is a really weird game made by Vanillaware, who made Dragon's Crown and I think it's called Odin Sphere, which is a popular game. They made this game recently called 13 Sentinel Aegis Rim, which is a weird name and also it's a weird premise, and it's a very weird game. It's like best way I can describe it is like in terms of gameplay is it's a visual novel to tell a lot of, like these weird anime visual novels that they have on Steam. It's sort of like that, to tell the story, but it also has this turn-based strategy. It's a turn-based.
I'm in.
Yeah, I know, and you are teenage kids in mechs fighting kaiju and saving the world. It's kind of weird.
Did I dream this game into existence?
Perhaps. And there's 13 main characters in the game, and you follow their stories, and they're interweaving, and it's got time travel, and it's got mechs, and it's got cool abilities, and all that stuff. I think you might be interested in it. It's on PlayStation
I'm
4.
But
it's
Aegis
13
something?
Sentinel Aegis Rim. It is more heavily, but the only thing you might not be into is it's more heavily on the story aspect than the turn-based strategy. But it is a cool game. There are definitely waifus in it, but I don't know how old they are, so maybe I'll take that back. Maybe they're not waifus. Maybe they're just high school age girls. I don't know. Anyways, though, that's what I've been playing. A lot of fun. A lot of missed out on sleep because I beat a Japanese game. God, what else is new? Anyway, Yvonne, tell me about your life. I had tequila too.
What tequila did you have?
I had the George Clooney tequila because my boss gave it to me for Christmas. It was very nice. I made I was trying to make. I made a tequila Moscow Mule. So I had ginger ale, ginger beer, lime, and tequila. But I was trying to gauge how much tequila I was pouring, and I already put the ice in the glass, and I was like, but it's the displacement, and pour a little more. And I filled up this glass like this high with tequila. This is a pretty large glass, and I drank it all. It was great. That's what happened.
So that was like 3 shots of tequila in one.
Yes.
Man, so much exciting stuff has happened in my life.
Oh, good.
One, I'm back to work on a new movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited to get back to work, but I missed my COVID test date, so I can't go into the office until Friday.
Nice.
So I've been working from home, which is okay. I don't prefer it in a movie sense. But it's okay. My office mates are usually my cats who like to sleep either behind me or like one's next to me and one's behind me, or one's in my lap and one's behind me. It's awesome.
Great.
Because Laura locks her room and locks her office, so the cats aren't allowed in there. So they're very needy, very lonely. They come hang around me. Totally into it. Other than that, this past weekend we went and celebrated Laura's birthday in and around the Adirondacks at Gore Mountain. I went downhill skiing for the first time in my life.
Yeah, we talked about that last week on our top 5 child actor film movies podcast. That was How did that go?
My goodness, we progressed from the bunny hill to a green in 2 hours. Basically, we had completed a green hill from never having done it in our lives before.
Wow.
The guy who was instructing us told us we were the fastest learners that he'd had.
That's great.
It was shocking, the difference between the bunny hill and the actual mountain. It was crazy. You get to the top of the mountain and it's like a green and blue mixed trail where you can branch off. And then there are some parts later on the mountain which go to black. But it's like the bunny hill is like maybe a 5% grade. You know, it's not that hard. You get a lot of experience learning how to do the basics of turning. When I was flying down the main mountain, I was like, seriously, my mind was flashing. It's super funny because it's so
I thought
dumb.
you were doing cross country skiing, not downhill.
No, this was downhill skiing.
Oh shit.
on a mountain.
That's
with
scary.
Alpine. It was like this.
Holy fuck.
And we went from the bunny hill to going like that.
That's
in
scary.
2 hours and 15 minutes, we had completed our first run. But we like learned the basics of turning and everything. And when we got to the top of the mountain and started going down, I was going so fast that it was the moment where your life flashes before your eyes.
You're
and you're
like,
trying...
I have no control over what's happening right now.
Basically, I was like, all of my mind was flashing to, all I could see in my head were all of the alpine skiers from the Olympics, and all of them who are just about to crash and save themselves. And that was basically everything in my mind was like, this is how they save themselves. This is how they save themselves. So even though I'm nowhere near the skill of anyone going to the any level of competition, never mind the Olympics, my mind was just flashing to everything, all the runs that I saw, and just trying to save myself while going back and forth on the mountain. And it was intense, but a lot of fun. It's a really big quad workout, which I had no idea going in. But
well, you
it was
gotta
really,
be
really fun.
Hunched over the whole time, right? In order to...
No? God, I can't handle going that fast. I'm like, stand tall, but lean forward, not too much speed.
Increase surface area, slow myself down.
So I fell first. I was in the middle of a run, in the middle of the hill, and I just lost my gearing, and like I wasn't able to hold on, and I kind of like I didn't yard sail. I didn't lose everything. I lost one ski. But I was able to catch up, and the ski instructor. We bought a lesson because obviously. And the ski instructor skied down to me and was like, "Are you okay? Help me get my gearing all together and help me get my my ski boot back in the ski." And then we were looking around, and he's like, "Well, let's go find Laura and see how she is." And then we look down, and we just see these feet and skis on the side, on the right side of the path, just going like this.
This is like a movie.
And he's like, "Oh my God, she's in the woods." And I'm like, "Oh my God, she's in the woods. Something's happened." So I just ski basically out of control as fast as I can to get down to her. And I'm like, I ski into the woods too, because I'm like, I don't care what happens to me. Something terrible has happened to Laura. It's like, even if I stop into the trees, it won't matter. I just need to get to Laura. But she was fine.
Of course, I'm sure she was. Capable woman.
Very.
She can handle herself.
We both basically ended up in the woods. The ski instructor like helped Laura out, and I was like stuck. I basically slid into a tree, gently, but into the tree. I couldn't like stop in time on that one. Anyway, ended up, I really, truly enjoyed it. I think I'm going to keep trying to go downhill skiing in the future.
Okay.
And then we're going to go cross-country skiing this week to get that regular stuff.
Purchase your own skis one day, keep them nice and waxed, sharpen them. I don't know if that's a thing.
I don't know how that works either.
I assume the waxing is important. I don't know. I think you wax a snowboard, so, right?
I feel like you because you wax cross-country skis, so I imagine you'll wax downhill skis.
Makes sense.
Sure. It was tremendous fun.
Oh, I'm glad you had a good time.
Very difficult, but over the course of the weekend, there were, it was us and a couple other people, and we had some Moe Shambam.
Oh yeah.
Bubbles for the occasions.
Oh yeah.
I had my first bourbon barrel cab sauv, which I thought was meh.
Was it because of the bourbon barrel or because of the grapes? Or
no, because of the cab sauv. It was just a grape. Cab sauv doesn't light my world on fire. I'm just gonna be honest here.
It's a lot. It's a heavy one. That's a
yeah. And we were having it with tacos. It was okay.
Well,
had a Matua Sauv Blanc. I love the
Wow,
Matua
you're having
Sauv
tacos
Blanc.
on the trail? That doesn't seem like
we had an Airbnb.
I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm just saying that doesn't seem like very appropriate food for the old skiing trip.
We had a
you
nice
think like
little
a
cabin.
fondue, some nice hot chocolate or something, or like
Laura wanted to keep it really simple, so I made a lasagna for Friday night. I
Nice.
made the sauce from scratch, the ricotta from scratch. I was gonna make the pasta from scratch, but
add too much work.
I can't get the fucking light egg recipe to work to save my life.
I'll
It's
give
too
you a
dry.
recipe.
I can do like the medium where I get like 3 yolks or a yolk and then 2 eggs and then some water and oil.
Yeah, that's
And
the
that
one.
works.
I was gonna give you that recipe.
Yeah. But the one that I was trying to do was just 2 eggs, a bunch of oil, a little water, and then flour. And I did hard and soft flour mixed. Maybe I should have just kept it with the soft. Anyway, I had to buy some bullshit pre-made pasta. But because the sauce and there was just so much mozzarella. It all worked together, so it was fun.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you could have just done the sauce and the cheese at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna make my own mozzarella. I'm just gonna be honest.
No, I mean, you could have just like layered sauce and cheese, and it would have been good. So.
Oh,
That's
yes,
what I meant.
could
Yeah,
have
no.
done that.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, it's better with the pasta. But
I went to my local Aldi, picked up their oven-ready lasagna pasta. It was great. It all worked out.
That's all you need.
That was delicious. And then we made tacos. That was fine. Yeah. Just barely playing any video games again because now I'm back to work. So I've got a little bit of XCOM 2 that I'm still working through, my legendary campaign. I've basically come to the point where I'm better than everybody, so it's easy.
Is legendary the hardest difficulty in that game?
It is. You can increase the difficulty by doing Iron Man, so you can't like reload or save. It's just like whatever happens, happens. And I'm gonna be honest, I did a little bit of save scumming. But it's difficult to like. I was learning the first time, basically, of playing that difficulty, so I gave myself some slack. Also, it's a video game, and I play it for fun.
Yeah. So can we not make it the hardest game ever?
Yeah, I don't. That's why I don't play Dead Souls or whatever.
Yeah, they might as well be called Dead Souls. Fuck that game.
And yeah, that's basically what's been going on with me. I finished Schitt's Creek in like a day and a half. It's a funny series.
It's just like a good show to watch. You don't get too invested in the story. It's just like a light comedy.
Yeah.
Dark comedy.
Well, I mean, there's not that much story overall. It's just this like if you the basic premise is if you took one of the really rich reality families and then you strip them of all their money and put them in a podunk town, where they have no life skills, etc., how would they survive? And the comedic situations that arise from that. It has a lot of really good writing, good characters. The world that they build is pretty funny.
Nice.
And you know, it's kind of low stakes because it's just these people living in this small town, so that's fine. Has a little bit more bite and sarcasm than like a Kim's Convenience. So, yeah. There's one character in it played by Catherine O'Hara whose name is Moira, and she has a very particular accent, and I had watched it for like 2 days straight. So when we went to hang out this weekend and I got drunk, my echolalia kicked in, so I could not get rid of the Moira voice.
That's funny.
And it was both funny and annoying to people who had seen it and not.
Very good.
You know who didn't see something coming was Wall Street when Reddit ravaged the GameStop stock.
Oh yes,
GameStop
Reddit
stock.
just deserts these these people. Finally, the underground uprising of Reddit taking over the goddamn stock market, the stonks market.
The stonks. Julian, can you give us a rundown of what you know of the GameStop stonks?
Well, basically, I'm not very well versed with the stock market. And let me tell you, I know that it's essentially governed by supply and demand, however, which is, in itself, on a surface level, is a very, simple topic. But of course, once you get into it, it gets a little more complicated. And especially when involving the stock market, it can get ultra complicated. And the joke amongst...
You're nailing it so far.
The joke amongst economics PhDs and no one understands the economy, right? But even the PhDs. So
they have no fucking clue what they're talking about.
Basically, a bunch of Redditors on the subreddit r Wall Street Bets decided to, it's called short, right? Short bet?
No.
Didn't they do that?
They were taking a short-term approach to it. But what was happening is that there was a hedge fund that was shorting the GameStops.
Oh, I see.
GameStop stock. So what that means, so on Wall Street there are a multitude of things that you can bet, and a bunch of different ways that they can create money out of nothing. So one of the things is that you can bet on a stock's price falling, because the basics of Wall Street is that it's all bet, right? But we give it fancier terminology. So in terms of shorting, what was happening is that there was a hedge fund that was shorting the GameStop stock.
Yes.
And it was saying that the price of the GameStop stock was going to fall.
Right.
So
that's
then
the
Reddit steps in and says, "Fuck you, Wall Street. We're gonna invest and pump billions of dollars into the GameStop."
And that's where the supply and demand comes in.
Yeah. So that basically, the more demand there is for a stock, the higher the price of it goes, and thereby destroying the short that the hedge fund had put in. It got crushed on that bet. And
it was an organized raid of GameStop stocks. And
excellent way to put it.
It's exactly what it is. And I think I saw someone tweet, they said Wall Street could never have foreseen a bunch of, they said something about they could never expected a bunch of kids who were raised on or highly coordinated WoW raids to get involved in the stock market, something along those lines.
That's an excellent way of phrasing it and thinking about it realistically.
But yeah, they the Reddit, the subreddit essentially actually got people to invest a lot of money in a coordinated strike essentially on this stock, which overnight essentially drove the price up to over $200 a share. And they were buying at $4 or $3 or $4 a share, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So that's over, I think it's a 1,000 or no. Yeah, like a 1,000% return on that.
And it
purchase,
went on,
right?
The stock at its peak went up to 483.
Mm-hmm.
So it first started with this Reddit movement, and then as people saw the market moving, then you had sharks and hedge funds and other people balancing that out and also aiding it in the other way. So it wasn't just the Robinhood Reddit group, but other hedge funds, etc., were able to jump onto it and then have since sold a shit ton of it.
Yes.
What's interesting is that a lot of these people are using Robinhood, which is an app in which it eliminates a lot of fees and the need to have a minimum, and you can do a lot of, it's a very small scale, low level trades. Yeah, that people didn't, there was like a market deficiency in that, and then Robinhood came in to step into that area to kind of provoke that area of growth, and it filled a big niche. And this is
it's the millennials' way of investing in the stock market. That's essentially what Robinhood is. It's an app to invest in the stock market, and they really, I heard about it a couple years ago, and I think I made an account, but I didn't really ever invest any money. I actually never invested any money because I'm too afraid to invest in the stock market, and this is even showing me that, like, I absolutely should never invest in the stock market. But I think the old mantra is that you should never invest anything that you're not willing to lose.
Right.
And that goes with, I think that should go without saying, but if you don't know that, you should definitely always keep that in mind. And we're not financial advisors, so don't take anything that we say to be 100% true, and don't tell us that because we said something that you invested a lot of money. All right, look, we're just talking about this.
Yeah, we're not financial we're experts in that way.
But you did, however, you studied the economy, and you took a couple economics classes, or did you?
Yeah, my focus was political economy, so my master's was focused in political economy. To be fair, I didn't finish my master's, but did a lot of study of the 2007 economic crisis, and have pretty, I would say, above average understanding of the stock market. So what's really interesting, there's so many things that play into this that make it a really interesting topic, I think, to talk about, outside of just like a bunch of people sticking it to Wall Street to an extent. So from the first part, it is that money, one of the main things is that money has never been cheaper than it is right now. And there are a lot of people sitting at home who have a lot of money. If you look at, for instance, Bitcoin, which, like, I invested in Bitcoin at the start of the COVID pandemic. Thank you. At the start of pandemic, it dropped down to you could buy for something like $3.5K.
An entire Bitcoin?
Yeah. Now a Bitcoin sells for over 35.
Sweet.
So there are a lot of people who, for instance, through Bitcoin or other things, have made money. Borrowing money has never been cheaper than it is right now.
For instance, a stimulus check. A lot of people lost their jobs, obviously, but a lot of people kept their jobs and continued to make the same salary that they did, and also just happened to be working at home. So they happen to also get those stimulus checks as well. So that's extra money in your pocket for some people.
And so that there's a lot of money floating around for people stuck at home who haven't been able to spend on entertainment or other things that they would have usually spent on, or saving money on food, etc. So there are people who have been able to make a profit
from a pandemic. Not during the pandemic. Just during a pandemic.
Definitely Jeff Bezos because of the pandemic.
Yes.
But other people
Did you hear he's stepping down as CEO?
Yes, to take basically the position that he has now, which is like executive chairman.
Yeah, great.
If he gave out $105,000 to every single Amazon employee, he would be as rich now as he was before the pandemic. $105,000 to something like 876,000 people.
But he won't.
No.
He won't.
So there is a rebellion against that kind of sentiment. as well as the idea that I still feel like a lot of people resent the fact that Wall Street realistically hasn't been punished for the 2007 financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of the same people who are probably going to like places like Zuccotti Park and protesting Wall Street are the same people who now have some money and can say fuck you to a hedge fund and invest in a way that really crushes a hedge fund. And so they did this with GameStop. I swear to God, I'm going to get it right one of these times. AMC and a few other ones. But what's interesting is that the way that it was being done, a lot of it being done through like an app like Robinhood, or similar ways in which Robinhood drove the market to have a very democratized approach to being able to do these small-scale buys with limited fees, no brokers, things like that. Mm-hmm. But then Robinhood, after all this trading happened, put a stop on its own trading of this thing. And then that was closely followed by a round of investment in which, for instance, a hedge fund that is a market maker that had already invested in Robinhood, bailed out the hedge fund that had been crushed by the Reddit stonks. And then it reinvested more capital into Robinhood when it needed more capital. And that at the same time caused them to freeze the purchasing of the stonks and then ease in the ability to sell them. So thereby alleviating some of the pressure off of the hedge funds and the people who are making the short bets. So it's a bit complicated, but essentially it's like you had a huge hedge fund that was invested in you, and then you get pressure from a lot of hedge funds and probably some level of the SEC or other brokers, banks, things like that, to basically stake the money that is needed to make all those transactions. So you need the capital, and then the hedge fund that is going to supply you emergency capital invests into the exact hedge funds that critically lost the bet. Mm-hmm. It seems really shady from the outside, and just in the practices of what Robinhood has done, because realistically, the only entity that should be halting trade on stocks is the New York Stock Exchange.
Right.
They would do that.
It's a free fucking market.
Yeah. They would do, usually the New York Stock Exchange would do that if there's like thoughts of fraud or some insider trading or some machinations within the market that aren't on the up and up. The Reddit thing was done wide out in the open that anybody who was paying attention could have seen. Mm-hmm. B, there's not like a conspiracy there because it's thousands of smaller people.
And they're just saying, let's all invest now. Or it has nothing, it's not illegal to say that at all.
And it's not like a small, it's not like a cartel of hedge funds that are investing. It's just,
they just happen to be monitoring group of people. Yeah. They were monitoring the stock market and saw some trends, and they're I assume, I don't know any of these people, but they're some of them probably independently wealthy. Some of them might be day traders. Who fucking knows? There was a lot of people in this subreddit, so a lot of different types of people all decided at once to invest into GameStop. So that's how
and then. And so, but what's interesting, it wasn't the New York Stock Exchange, it wasn't the SEC that halted it, it was Robinhood halting it. Now, whether we are to believe their co-CEO, Vlad Tenev, in that the stock was halted in trading in order to make sure that the funding was done correctly, because there was apparently a 3:30 a.m. call where he needed $3 million to guarantee the transactions. Whether that was the case or whether there was pressure from hedge funds that were investors in Robinhood to slow down and really let them catch up and get a grasp on things. That's, we have lip service, but how much of that is actually true and how much of that is its own pressures from the hedge fund? I think that's one of the interesting things is Robinhood both democratizes the ability for people to buy stocks on a small scale without a broker, with limited fees or no fees, but at the same time, it is an app. It has people that can shut down the programming.
It has a terms of service agreement that you all agree to without reading. So they probably have some sort of clause in there that can get them out of this, potentially.
Yeah, but the other thing is that in and of itself a conspiracy to prevent people from being able to trade.
Yeah.
And is that investigatable by the SEC? Elizabeth Warren, for instance, has called on questions of what happened there. So we have different levels of conspiracy that are coming up against each other. Like, is a huge amount of small traders who are able to push a stock up, is that considered like a cartel conspiracy? Is that like basically a bunch of people being able to manipulate stock prices? Is that something that needs to be regulated now? Or is the fact that Robinhood shut down the trading, is that the more important issue in terms of the conspiracy, that it was the hedge funds that were telling Robinhood to stop the trading, to stop the bleeding of their own investments?
Right.
Where do you think, Congress is focusing on the shutdown, but do you think that there's going to be an equal amount of pushback from Wall Street execs to look into this democratizing process? And where do you envision this battle going?
I err on the side of Wall Street is going to get whatever the fuck they want, and they're not going to see any sort of problems with their money flow. The people on the top only ever get richer, right? That's how it's been since the dawn of the stock market. Or they get bailed out, I would say, or they get bailed out in the case that exact right in 2008, right?
Yeah,
they can't even go bankrupt. This is not a thing that can even happen. It's it's also something that you even see in a way on YouTube, right? Once you get big enough on YouTube, like we see all these, I don't know, you probably don't pay attention to stuff like this, but there's like a lot of drama on YouTube. In a way it's a similar economy of your attention as opposed to your money. These big YouTubers fuck up and do stupid things that could potentially are illegal sometimes, or like in the case of like some, I don't know, not specifically, I can't name anyone, like Logan Paul or Jake Paul, like they do stupid shit all the time, right? Sometimes they do questionable things that are potentially illegal. Like he got raided by the FBI, I think, one of them. Like I don't know what he fucking
or
did.
The things of the suicide force that one of them did in Japan, and that was a big scandal back in the day. It wasn't illegal, but it was a big scandal. In the same way that this would put a blemish on Robinhood,
Exactly. So like it's a similar idea, a similar concept. Those YouTubers are still YouTubers. And in fact, they probably have higher subscriber counts than they've ever had, because they're too big to fail. That's one thing. And also these types of scandals, I guess, this is how it's being described, have been happening all the time, almost every day, on Wall Street, on the New York Stock Exchange, by these hedge funds, by certain other investors. Like, they drive stocks up all the time for their own profit, and just no one really pays attention except for this inner circle of investors, right? In a way. So,
and the SEC, or the so that's the Securities Exchange Commission,
yep.
or it's like a governing body.
Just let it happen.
It is both semi-powerless to do a lot against a lot of these different transactions and companies, and it's also fueled by people coming out of Wall Street into there. Right. So depending on who is being appointed into the SEC and the disposition of the commissioner, there is a lot of leeway in the way that things are governed. And then we go to pure and blatant fraud, which happened in the 2007 financial crisis, where these companies were packaging these fraudulent packages of mortgages, getting them AAA rated by the ratings agencies, even though they had no idea what the fuck was inside these packages, and then selling them as if they were gold stars. Meanwhile, they had internal emails being like, this is questionable or this is shit. And they held positions of when those packages that they had put together were going to fail. So people like Goldman Sachs did. So there's a lot of incredibly fraudulent behavior, even if it's not legally considered fraudulent, but a lot of really fraudulent behavior that just isn't recorded in the books as such. And this is finally a time when the internet has reached the Wild West of Wall Street. And I watched a Daily Show segment on it, and it was incredible to hear what these Wall Street experts were saying in terms of like, I've never not enjoyed my job more than I do now. I feel irrelevant, is what one of the guys was saying, paraphrasing. And it's just ridiculous. Like, you get to manipulate the stock market, etc., on so many different levels, from the mortgage crisis to aluminium trading and things like that. And meanwhile, this group of people got together and, like, incredibly smartly fucked you over. And it was great. It's also great. I do think that the fact that it was GameStop had a big relevance to a lot of the people that were there. It's like, it's a company that has a lot of nostalgia. Good or bad, you do remember it. And the fact that these people, it's like, when you have a friend that's an asshole, but he's your asshole friend. So when other people mess with your asshole friend or call him names or things, you get bothered by it, even though you were the one who would be calling him those names in a different context.
Exactly.
So I think it's interesting. I really do want to see what the investigations into Robinhood lead to. I'm very curious to see how their justification and how that works out. I really hope that can continue to an in-depth level, because I don't see these apps going away or getting any smaller.
Right, and I think it's they should. I personally think that they shouldn't have the ability to halt the free trade on the market while the market's open, and even if it says in their TOS that they can, right, and you agree to it, right? I mean, I assure you, their defense is not as simple as that, right? They probably have some more complex shit going on, but
especially
I think,
versus what the rules of brokerage, which they are basically playing the role of, is.
Right, but it's like unfortunate. The reason why it's I mean, sure, it's like an infringement of certain rights, I would say, to halt people from selling and buying on the market, on the free market, right? But a lot of the people who were using that app are not wealthy hedge fund managers, right? They're the people that were just getting started during this whole thing in investing, and some people ended up investing a lot of money. There's a lot of money at play, and you're sort of holding their money. You're withholding their money back in the stocks, and because the GameStop stock is he got me there is fluctuating so much, these people are potentially losing a lot of money, right? Within seconds. I was monitoring it yesterday because I was watching someone monitoring it. I wasn't actually monitoring myself. They had it in the background, but like it fluctuated $40 within 10 minutes. So
yeah,
like,
I think nutty. That's the big thing is, should we be looking out for the small investor? Like the idea that hedge fund managers, even if they lose a ton of money, they're not usually gambling with their own money. A,
right. That's the thing. Oh yeah.
B, they are going to be fine and going to be able to pay the mortgages on their third and fourth houses. Versus people who are using that stimulus check, for instance, to invest in the stock market because they want to stick it to the man and be part of this thing.
And potentially pay off their student loans or something like that.
Yes, but then they invest at the wrong time, and they're not hitting the peaks that they needed to, or they're not able to sell as much as they need to. So, for instance, they bought at 300. Robinhood puts the kibosh on it, and then it climbs to 483, but they're only able to sell one stock at a time. And then by the time they're able to get access to fully selling their stock, they are only able to sell it at 90 or $100 because of the function of the app that Robinhood put forward, and they're slamming the brakes on it.
Right.
Allowing then, other hedge funds investing not through Robinhood to short the stock again. And now maybe you had a big investment on the short of the stock when it was like $30 or $6 or whatever the original was, but now you're shorting it at 483.
Right. It's crazy. And I guess just for clarification, if someone's just tuning in, they don't necessarily know what a hedge fund is. It's like I'm sort of loose. I loosely know what it is. It's almost like a agglomeration of people investing in a fund that invests in stocks, right?
Usually hedge funds consist of retirement accounts and
pension funds. You're right.
Yeah. A lot of it. It's usually hedge funds have a diversified portfolio, so they take a lot of money from pension funds. They will also take it from other investors. They might also be able to take loans in order to leverage themselves into positions where they can invest. But yeah, it's just a big pot of money that you can use to gain significantly higher leverage in terms of manipulating a stock, for instance, to go up or down depending on what you need it to do. And therefore, you all gain and all lose at the same time.
And as far as I know, hedge funds, depending on the hedge fund, I guess, typically invest in more risky stocks that it's like high risk, high reward type situation. I'm guessing.
Well, it depends. So investing in any kind of stock is going to be riskier than investing in something like a T-bond,
right, of course,
which is like a treasury bond. So or other different investment
portfolios.
No,
Isn't
not
there
a portfolio.
CD?
It's like a CD or other types of instruments, investing instruments that you can do that have a more guaranteed return, which is slower, but isn't as
guaranteed.
yes, but isn't as high as, for instance, the stock can be. So if you invest in the stock market and do it correctly, then you can gain more than the 5% that a T-bond would grow at, or something like that, or the 10% that a CD would grow at.
As well.
Yeah.
That's why people. It's like there's a certain thrill to it, right? It is in a way. It is like a controlled gambling.
Sometimes it's completely uncontrolled gambling.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's for thrill seeking. A lot of people lose a lot of money. A lot of people gain a lot of money. That's what it is. It's like a government sanctioned casino. In a way.
Which technically most casinos are probably government sanctioned.
But not all of them, all right? But also that's true. It's crazy. So that's I don't like how Robinhood halted trading, and they had a huge play in this. And then I guess we didn't really talk about AMC, but the AMC stock, but they're essentially sort of been roped along in the same sort of idea that the Reddit subreddit group also decided to invest in that, although they did not have as many investors as far as I know. I doubt it, because the price of the AMC stock is not nearly as high.
Yeah, I think that it's less which stocks they particularly invested in. Just the type of stock. So it's a smaller company that needed only several $1 billion in order to move the stock as much as it did. So if, for instance, if the same like Wall Street Bets group wanted to move Apple stock, it would take like trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
To move it the same way that they're moving the GameStop stock, or AMC. So it's these smaller companies that are often the exact kinds of companies that hedge funds will short, are the ones which now, like these smaller groups of investors, like smaller in terms of their capital, but larger in terms of the number of them, can in fact come in and save, or not necessarily save, but compete with the Wall Street shorting game. So it's really going to change the risk reward of shorting stocks. It's going to be one of the more intriguing things that we look into in terms of what this kind of investment will return if you're going to short stocks on smaller companies. Because at any given time now, if they get if this group of bettors, this large scale group of bettors gets wind of it, they can bet against your short and pump that stock. And now it's interesting, because it's also going to be interesting what Reddit does. Because if Reddit, for instance, shuts down the Wall Street Bets forum, right, then they can take that and move it off to a more secret platform. And now we have a growing conspiracy or something like that. And now we can have the idea of a cartel. And then people who are making millions off of these kinds of bets will be able to create their own hedge fund style approach to it. More venture capital. So it will be interesting to see kind of the different way it plays out, because we have both the Robinhood aspect, like how these private app companies can manage to be a broker when this kind of style of thing happens, especially before they IPO. So the initial public offering of Robinhood hasn't gotten to that point, and everybody who is built Robinhood from the ground up is really themselves invested in their own company and doesn't want any trouble from the SEC from this being a possible thing that people need to look at, or hedge funds looking down upon them, because then they won't be able to cash out at huge inflated prices like those the IPO of Twitter or anything else. So it's very interesting.
Of course, I mean, it's always interesting to learn about new things, Yvonne. Do you think that a lot of people our age, and of course older and younger. Do you think they've had their eyes open to what's been going on these past couple of days? And a lot of people have been educated, maybe not for better or for worse. Depends on what sources they got their information from, right? But do you think that this is going to start a lot more people investing in the stock market? Do you think a lot fewer people are going to invest in the stock market? Or
I think that it might spark more interest in people investing in the stock market, which is going to be both a good and bad thing. I think that the little guy, like we described earlier, has a lot more risk involved in terms of what they might lose. Like if you invest your next stimulus check into the stock market expecting to see the returns that GameStop had, because you hear this is going to be the next GameStop, which is going to happen over and over and over for the next year.
Right.
And then it goes down or shrinks or whatever, or it doesn't move, but you don't know how to either stay or short your stock, etc. Then you're going to have a bunch of people who are really leveraging their own capital, and in a way that isn't going to be good. The other thing is, I think that a lot of people are going to hear this story and then completely forget about it. Which I think is also disappointing.
Back to how it is.
Because what's going to happen is that most people will listen to this story for the next month. The story will disappear, and then Wall Street will be able to introduce laws which nobody's going to pay attention to, which will shore up ways in which they can benefit more. And this kind of thing from the mass of people won't be accessible.
Right.
And so then we're going to have even less leverage in terms of the mass of people to make money from our own bets on Wall Street, that they can do their own manipulation to make money from. So
right.
I hope that the push for democratization of access to Wall Street continues, if that's the system of capital in which we are existent. I don't like when the regulation becomes things in which the people who have money continue to shore their positions up, because I think that leads to the extraction of money from people in a way that is inequitable and continues that collaboration of law power and economic power, leaving out the majority of the mass of people.
Right. I agree with you. I mean, this is essentially what Bernie Sanders has been saying for centuries at this point, right? He's been shitting on Wall Street for decades, and I guess I hope that this I really hope that this event has truly opened a lot of people's eyes as to what's going on in Wall Street, and maybe you can at least tangentially pay attention to it now and sort of keep up with, because it does move quickly, right? I mean,
I don't understand how this event will spark more interest than the 2007 financial crisis.
Because it's about GameStop and everyone's bored, and like,
maybe I'm wrong, and my cynical self is wrong.
I think it's because the younger folks out there, all right, are all about memes nowadays, and I'm like, I'm half memeing and half being serious here, right? So I think a lot of the people growing up in this time are, I wish them all the best. Let me put it that way. But I think that they consume media a lot differently than people did back in 2007. That back then, how we were exposed to something like this back in 2007, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that, but I also think that's like what you were saying. That's sort of like a double-edged sword, right? Because we make we make memes about things, we make light of the situation. Because of that, people don't take it so seriously, and then it becomes forgotten the next day because Wall Street's too big to fail. So I think it could go either way. I think that it maybe people just forget about it. I think that's probably more likely. I think what you're saying, that the Wall Street will, the hedge honchos at Wall Street, Mr. Wall Street himself will place some rules, place some laws that will make sure that this like gets swept under the rug and will never happen again, and there can never be another uprising from Reddit. And that's really unfortunate. I could see that happening, and everyone just forgetting about it because it's out of people's hands, because you do need to invest money into it. It's, even though it's something that you can directly impact yourself, if you just simply invest money in certain places with other people, even though that you can actually make a difference that way, as opposed to, for instance, like the Electoral College, right? If I vote in New York City, realistically it doesn't really matter, right? Because New York City's, I mean, aside from the local elections, like New York is gonna vote blue in the presidential election. But like, if I can vote with my wallet and make a direct change with a bunch of other people on the Wall Street market, then maybe I don't know where I'm going. Like, I feel like that was
always the thing that we were told, right? Vote with your wallet. That was a lot of what we were told, and now we did. We voted with our wallet. Yeah. We said, "Fuck you, Wall Street. We don't want you shorting this stock," and it's going to be a dangerous position to be in which case, that position of voting with your wallet says, "Well, now we're going to restrict how you can vote."
Right.
You only exactly. Wallets with chains are allowed to vote.
Or sophisticated I think there's a
Velcro
term,
wallets.
There's a term, sophisticated investor, I believe, in Wall Street. Like,
accredited investor.
Accredited investor.
Yeah, they're the ones exactly who can make bigger bets.
Right, you can invest more.
Yeah.
There's a limit on how much you can. I don't know. It just seems like it's a big old boys club on Wall Street, and they're trying to keep as many people out as possible, even though it's technically a free market, right? It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing, I would say. But I think that I think this is a really good thing to have come out of Reddit. I love Reddit a lot, and not everything is good on Reddit, but I would say it's more of a positive. If you look at Reddit as a whole, I would say it's more of a positive community than a negative one. It's not like 4chan or something, for instance. And the ability for that to simply through text, right? To get people to make a huge impact is really cool. I like it's a text-based, and you can post videos, I guess. I don't know how
some media
everyone organized, but yeah, it's like ideal. Yeah, it's essentially through text people organize this, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. I hope it leads to more.
As long as it's neutral and or positive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's also like...
Yeah, that's true. It could be bad.
We don't want more QAnon kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't want a QAnon subreddit to make a huge impact on things.
Ooh. All right.
Maybe we shouldn't have said QAnon on our podcast. We're going to get demonetized. Not that we could make any money anyways. But Thanks for listening to the podcast. We went all over the place, but I think that's sort of the general trend for this topic. It's all over the place. It's hard to get a concise answer from many people. We hope we could be educational in some way.
There isn't really a concise answer right now. It's a lot of questions that this is raising, and I think we are pointing to the fact that there's a lot of things that are floating in the air, and it's important to continue to pay attention to this story. So not just pay attention to it in the week in which the stonks go up as high as possible, but what's going to happen in the coming weeks to make sure that people are able to invest in stonks without, without being punished.
Yeah, and it should be noted we recorded this on the 3rd of February, 2021. If tomorrow, let's say Reddit makes it so that GameStop went up to $500, who knows? It could have happened. I doubt it, but it could happen. So thank you for listening to the Hungover podcast. We record weekly, and we're recording and streaming live on twitch.tv/jujubesgood, where you can be part of the conversation. It would have been pretty cool if we had some people tune in this week. We had some people last week. I was
Ask some questions.
Yeah, we're excited to interact with the chat, and that's a really good way to get your questions answered directly. Otherwise, you can email us at gaminghungover@gmail.com. We're happy to read your inquiries about the podcast. Although I haven't checked that email in a long time, but it should come up on my phone. I haven't gotten any
Me too.
notifications. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a great week or day or night. I don't know what's going on. Whenever you listen to this, have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.